Welcome to episode 1 of my brand new series called the Road to Pro series. I just wanted to take this time to explain what this series is going to be all about because I am super excited to be sharing this new series with you, and I kind of wanted to give you a look into what my detailed plan of attack is for my next bodybuilding show. So my Road to Pro series is going to be documenting my entire journey to the natural bodybuilding stage. I'm going to be bringing you guys along for the ride by giving you guys a look into what the preparation process is like, by sharing my training, my nutrition, my posing, and anything else that I feel is valuable along the way. So for those who haven't been following my channel, I did my first prep for my first bodybuilding show back in April 2019, where I competed in men's classic physique. I was a complete natural and I did an untested show, so therefore I got blown out of the water. I didn't really have high expectations going into the show. It was more just to kind of learn the process to see whether or not I enjoyed it, and honestly I learned so much from it. So this is actually going to be my second prep series, and the next show that I'll be doing is going to be a complete natural bodybuilding show. So in terms of when my next bodybuilding show is going to be, it's actually going to be in 2021. That will be my next competitive season. You might be thinking to yourself, that's a long time away, and honestly it kind of is, but as a natural bodybuilder we do need more time to prep in order to preserve muscle. So that's why I wanted to take this time in this video to kind of show you what my periodized plan looks like in terms of the different phases of training. That's why I've got this whiteboard. I'm going to be going through the different phases of my training. I'm going to be showing you how I'm periodizing my training and my nutrition to kind of meet those goals. So I'm really excited to jump into it. So if you guys are ready, let's jump right in. Alright, so before I explain what I have on the board here, I just want to let you know that plans do change, and this is just a plan, and I'm aware of that, but I think it's kind of good to plan this in order to kind of stay accountable to your goals. If you've kind of got like a more long-term goal, like I said, I won't be competing until 2021, but this is the plan that's going to really keep me accountable and make sure that I'm progressing. So I think that this is a great guideline in terms of what I plan to do, and obviously the numbers might change as I'm progressing through the program, so I just wanted to highlight that first before I actually dive into the plan. Alright, so now moving into the plan of attack. So this is just basically how I organize my phases. And as you can see here, this is the weeks out. That's the weeks out from the show. So I'm actually starting at 50 weeks out. And if you think that's insane or that's a long time, it definitely is a long time. But like I mentioned before, I'm going to be progressing and doing a whole periodized training plan. So I'm not going to be cutting that entire time. And that's why from 50 weeks to 43 weeks, you can see this is just my extended bulk. So this is what I've been doing since I competed in my last show in April, when I got down to about 168 pounds, 167 pounds. So ever since that, I actually bulked up from 167 pounds, and I've been bulking a little over a year, or close to a year now actually. So yeah, I'm just going to be extending my bulk. So I'm going to be bulking for from 50 weeks to 43 weeks, and so that's a different phase. So phase 1 is just a continuation of my bulk, and then the dates here are basically just my check-in dates. So every one of these dates are a Sunday. That just kind of works best for me. You can kind of just, if you're doing this for yourself, you plan on implementing some type of periodized program like this, just to pick a date that's kind of consistent that you're able to stick with. For me, Sundays have always been good. That's kind of where I normally do my check-ins. So what my check-ins are going to consist of, they're going to consist of posing pictures. And like I said, as I'm documenting this series and as I'm going through, I'll be posting a brand new video every Friday. So I'm going to be updating you guys with things like this, everything that comes to mind in terms of maybe I'll update you on some pictures, my weight, and I'll show you guys my training, like I mentioned at the start. But to get back into what I was saying here, so in terms of this is every Sunday. So February 16th was when I actually started this plan, so that would have been 50 weeks out. By the time you see this video, it's going to be March 6th is when I'm posting this video. So I'm going to be more down here between 48 and a half to 47 weeks out. And that's actually going to be, so on March 1st, this is kind of what I want to weigh. So these are the target weigh-ins on each day. So every Sunday, what I want to do, as you can see that these are kind of going up by a pound. So what my goal is to kind of every week increase my weight by a pound until I get to the max weight, which is going to be my peak bulk down here. So 205 is the goal weight for my bulk. And once I get there, I want to explain the next phase I'll be moving into. But yeah, that's kind of the highest that I want to get. And then that's actually going to be around April 5th. So like I mentioned, this is just kind of a temporary plan. If I get up to 206, depending on how I feel during the bulk, maybe 206, maybe 207, I'm just going to play it by ear. But I think a pound a week is pretty great, just in terms of being able to build muscle, being in a slight surplus, and not putting on too much body fat, knowing that I'm going to be doing a show prep. Yeah, so like I mentioned, that this is going to be just a continuation of my bulk until we get down to about April 5th. My max weight is going to be 205. So that 50 weeks actually brings you to January 24th, 2021. Like I mentioned, I kind of want to be in a position where I'm able to be slightly a little bit off of my stage weight. Maybe I only have to lose a couple more pounds. and I'm going to be competing in multiple shows in 2021 is what my goal is. And my goal weight, I think that's very important to take into consideration, because when I did this plan, I wanted to make sure that I was able to progress to my goal weight or my stage weight. So the last show I did, I was 168 pounds. So this time I kind of want to be a little bit leaner, and I kind of want to be able to preserve a lot more muscle, and that's why I think it's good to periodize your program and plan ahead and kind of do a more long and drawn out process, so that way you're able to kind of ease into it as opposed to having to do cut a bunch of weight really quickly. So I kind of want to be a little bit leaner. I want to go for 165 pounds, and I just kind of put to 168 because I could have built a little bit more muscle. That's what my goal was, is to bring a little bit more muscle into this show. So who knows, I could be up to 168 pounds and look the way that I want. But yeah, so that's just a continuation of my bulk. So that would be the phase, the first phase that I want to go over. So now that we covered the first phase being the bulk, and getting up to 205 by April 5th, that's just kind of the target date with the target weight. How am I going to get there? I think now we need to talk macros. So I just want to clarify right off the bat that I'm absolutely doing no cardio. That's just a personal choice of mine. I just feel like I want to focus on calories and that I want to really prioritize my weight training. So I'm absolutely doing no cardio. As I progress during the plan though, I will be adding cardio. I just want to get my body used to just straight calories and having no cardio, and then just making sure that I'm really training hard in the gym. I think that's the most important thing. Like I said, I'll get into more of the training later in the video, so make sure you stay tuned for that in terms of how I'm periodizing my training. But this is just more of the phases and different nutrition of how I'm dealing with that. So in terms of macros, so my current macros right now are 3250, so 3,250 calories. My breakdown is 210 grams of protein, 400 grams carbs, and 90 grams fat. So that's what I'm currently eating. And as of right now, I'm around 199 pounds. So I am going to have to increase that. I know that I'm going to have to increase it. So what my plan is to actually adjust my macros to bring them up by 100 calories. So just to further explain why 100 calories, I think what people do is they jump up way too much, so they might add 300, 400, 500 calories. And I don't think that's what you want to do. I think you want to add calories over time in order to kind of get to where you want to be. So I think it's very important to consider how your body's responding. So that's kind of why I chose just to buy 100 calories, because I can always add calories, and I'd rather add calories than have to take away calories. So that's just kind of my reasoning with that. So I'm going to be increasing it. So my actual current macros, like I said, is 3250. I'm going to be upping it by 100 calories to 3350. And then that's obviously going to affect my breakdown of my macros. So I'm actually going to be increasing protein from 210 to 215 grams of protein. I'm going to be going from 400 grams of carbs to 425 grams of carbs, and I'm actually going to be lowering fat because I want protein to kind of be a little bit higher. So that's kind of why I chose to kind of up my protein instead of my fat. So I went down from 90 grams to 87 grams. So in terms of that, that's kind of where I'm thinking. And now, obviously, like I said at the start, these numbers are all just according to how my body's responding, how I feel, and in terms of just being able to put on that 1 pound a week. That's kind of what I'm aiming for in terms of just judging my physique during my posing, and then obviously looking at the scale every week. So my max calories, so kind of where I'm aiming to get up to in my peak bulk is around 35 to 36. And that's, like I mentioned before, that's absolutely no cardio whatsoever in terms of it. So that would be the 205. So like I mentioned before, that could be higher or that could be actually perfectly right. But the only way to know that is just to kind of add calories slowly over time. And like I said, that this is a great approach to kind of keeping me accountable to that weight and just kind of seeing over time if I am putting on that 1 pound. So those are going to be the macros that I'm currently doing. Like I mentioned before, that current macros, I'm actually going to be adjusting that. So now I'm currently eating the 3350. And like I mentioned during the videos, and that every Friday I'm going to be giving you guys an update on everything. So basically my training, my calories, how my plan is going, and just basically if I'm meeting these and how I adjusted it if not. So yeah, that would be kind of the calories in terms of how to get up to my peak bulk. Alright, so now that we covered the first phase, and that's actually being the bulk, so just to summarize, that's going to be from 50 weeks to 43 weeks. It's going to be, the end of it's going to be on April 5th, with my target or my peak bulk weight being 205. Like I said, those are just numbers, but that's kind of the 205 is kind of what I'm shooting for. So now I want to go over phase 2. So in terms of phase 2 of my training or my preparation process, it's actually going to be a mini cut. So that's actually going to go from 42 weeks out to 37. So that's going to be a total of a 6-week mini cut. And in terms of why a 6-week mini cut is because anything longer than a 6 week would normally just be a a general cut. So that's kind of the purpose of the mini cut, is to kind of do an aggressive cut and just kind of limit to anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. So in this case, I want to do the full 6 weeks. And in terms of the check-ins, it's every Sunday once again. I'm sticking to my schedule. Sundays work best for me. So I think if you're kind of doing something like this, if you're interested, then definitely find a time that works consistently good for you based on your schedule. So as you can see here, we go from 205 to 202 and a half to 200 to 197 and a half. That's 2.5 pounds per week until I reach my minimum weight or my lower weight of 190 pounds, and that's going to be after the 6 weeks. Generally with a mini cut, you want to lose approximately about anywhere from 0.5% to 1% of your body weight. So in terms of that, 1% of 205 is actually slightly over 2 pounds. But I kind of want to bump that up to 2.5, so I'm going to be doing 1.2% of my body weight per week. So in terms of why would I be doing a mini cut after a bulk? Well, the main reason is because what happens is that after giving your body so many nutrients, by cutting those nutrients in a mini cut, because I'm not getting nearly as many calories in terms of that, I will be going over calories next. But yeah, so I won't be getting as many calories that I will. So I'm basically priming my body for another bulk. So I'm increasing the nutrient sensitivity of my body. So that will allow me to actually be in a better position to build more muscle. Yeah, so that's kind of why I would want to do a mini bulk in terms of that. But yeah, so that's going to be my second phase. It's going to be my mini cut. And in terms of how I'm going to get there, I'm going to explain that in a second in terms of the calories and the cardio. So before I actually move into the cardio and the calories, I just want to first say that there comes a point. So normally when you first start the bulk, like I mentioned, just going back to that sensitivity to nutrients, normally when you first start a bulk, you're very sensitive to the calories, so you're benefiting much greater than you would at the end of your bulk. So what I mean by that is at the start of your bulk, you're able to build more muscle, and as you put on more body fat, your building muscle potential, I guess you would say, kind of goes down as you bulk. So once you kind of reach a peak weight and you got a lot of body fat on, it's a lot harder to kind of build muscle, and it doesn't happen more optimally than you might think. So that's kind of why people say, well, you got to eat big to get big, and that's not necessarily true, because there does come a point, especially for a natural lifter, that in your bulk you're just not in the most optimal range in terms of body fat to be continuing building muscle. So that's just another further reason for why I want to do a mini cut, because if I kept bulking, then I could easily drop my weight up to 210, 220 pounds. And after that, I just don't see the benefit of doing that. So I think it does make sense to do a mini cut. So I just wanted to further add that because I thought that was important. So in terms of my cardio, I want to go over my cardio first. So during the mini cut, I will be adding a cardio component to my training. So what that's going to consist of, obviously it's going to change during the duration depending on how that's responding to the calories and the weight. But what I'm going to be starting off with cardio is actually 20 minutes of post-workout cardio, 5 days per week. So that's actually going to be a total of 120 minutes a week of cardio. And as I go up, I think it's really important that you kind of start at a lower amount. If I were just to go in and do 40 minutes 5 times a week, then I would have really nowhere to go once the weight stop dropping. So that's kind of my reasoning between that. And in terms of post-workout, basically the reasoning behind that is because I want to be able to prioritize the weights, and that's my main focus, is to get stronger and progress in the gym. So in terms of that, I would probably be doing post-workout cardio. Makes the most sense. I remember when I was doing my first show, I actually was doing cardio in the morning. 58 minutes. I think I'm going to go till 70 minutes. So I would have got 70 minutes in this morning. That leaves about 15 minutes left to do after my workout. Fasted, and then I was doing a workout, and then I was doing my cardio after. That's only because I was on 2 hours of cardio a day, so I kind of had to do that. But when I have the choice, I definitely would prefer doing post-workout cardio. So that's, like I said, I want to be starting at 120 minutes per week, so that could be broken down into 5 20-minute sessions. So that's going to be the cardio component. Now I'm going to move into the nutrients. Alright, so now that we covered cardio, now I'm going to move into calories. So as I previously mentioned, my peak bulk macros was anywhere from 35 to 36. So this is at the point where kind of things are definitely probably going to change. These are just estimates, but I think, like I mentioned at the start of the video, it's really good to have a plan, to have some type of something in place in order to kind of give you some guidance. So I think this is kind of where it gets a little bit foggy in terms of what the calories are actually going to be, but this is kind of what my plan is. So let's say it does work out as planned, and my peak bulk is going to be anywhere from 35 to 36, and that allows me to get to 205 pounds. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust it by anywhere from 700 to 800 calories. So I'm going to go from 35 to 2800 calories. And in terms of my breakdown of my nutrients, it's going to be a little bit different. The one thing that I want to highlight is I do have a much higher protein. That's going to be 220 grams of protein, 305 grams of carbs, and 77 grams of fat. So I guess the question is, why is the protein going to be much higher during my cut than it was during my bulk? I think during my bulk, I think the peak was maybe 210 grams and maybe 215. The reason being is there's two major reasons that during a cut I'm going to be in an extended deficit for up to 6 weeks. So because of that, I want to be able to help preserve that muscle, and protein is going to really help do that. So that would be the first reason, is to preserve muscle during my mini cut deficit. And the second reason is going to be protein is very satiating, so it helps keep you fuller longer. Therefore, it's going to help with hunger. And we all know once we start cutting calories, you definitely get much hungrier than you normally would, because your body's used to a certain caloric intake and it's used to a certain calorie base. So those are the two reasons to why I'm actually going to be keeping protein higher during my cut than my bulk. Alright, so now moving on to the final phase that I want to cover in this video. This obviously won't be the final phase for my whole prep series, because I will have to do cutting and to get lean, just to kind of eliminate all the body fat and do a big final push in terms of a cut. But I do want to highlight that after the mini cut, I'm going to be doing a recomp or a maintenance phase. So basically, why I wanted to include this in this video is because we all know that in terms of a mini cut, I wanted to make it last 6 weeks. So you're probably wondering, what is after that 6 weeks? And in terms of that, that would be a recomp. So it's actually going to be, like I said, everything is kind of up in the air in terms of the weight and kind of how I'm progressing. But yeah, I definitely want to keep the mini cut to 6 weeks, and then the recomp could change. But what I'm thinking right now is I'll do a four-week recomp, where my goal is to kind of maybe even put on half a pound, or even maintain if I stay around 190, 191 by the end of the recomp or the maintenance, I'd be happy. But I'd also like to gain maybe half a pound. So in terms of that, that's kind of the goal. Same thing with Sundays will be my check-ins as well, just to make sure that I'm progressing during that. But the reason why I like the recomp is because after doing the mini cut and getting down to 190, as I mentioned, I'm more sensitive to the nutrients. So what I'm going to be doing, where a lot of people I think make the mistake is they just kind of jump calories up, and they might cut cardio. But for what I'm going to do that makes the most sense, I feel, is just to slowly start adding calories back, instead of just adding them all right straight at once. So during that 4 weeks, I want to be adding calories back. And once I kind of get more into it, once I'm into the mini cut phase, I'll have more details in terms of how much calories. I don't really want to start throwing numbers around right now because I don't really know. But in terms of that, I want to be able to start adding calories to kind of bring my weight up. And then this is just hypothetical, but basically I'd like to go from 190.5 to maybe 192. And I feel like that would be a much better starting point, 192 versus 205. And then once I get there, I'll decide what I'm going to do, but that's basically going to be June, the middle of June. So whether or not I choose to do maybe a further cut and just kind of cut that way and see where that lands me, or maybe I'll just want to do another little bit of a quick bulk. Once I get there, like I said, I'll figure it out. But I also will be reducing cardio during this time. So like I mentioned, I'll be doing 120 minutes a week. That will be 5 days a week. I'll probably just cut cardio in half, so maybe I'll be doing 60 minutes a week. So maybe I'll be doing that over 3 sessions, so 20-minute sessions versus what I was previously doing. And like I mentioned, during the mini cut, that could go up, like that 120 minutes could end up being 180 minutes. So it all depends on how my weight's fluctuating with the calories. So that's kind of what my goal is those are the 3 phases that I want to cover in this video. Anything more would just be kind of too up in the air, but those are the 3 definite phases that I will be doing, and these are the target weights. So now that I covered the actual phases in terms of the calories, now I want to go over how I'm actually going to be structuring my training as I progress during each one of these phases. Alright, now that I've covered the phases, I want to move into the training periodization, so how I'm going to be organizing my training. And before I actually match that up with the bulk, the mini cut, and the recomp, I'm going to be showing you guys the different breakdown of that. But first I need to explain this. This is very important. So in terms of the training periodization, I'm going to actually be doing it from a macro a macro cycle approach. That's basically 1 year because that's going to be my prep, and that's why I think it's important to plan ahead. So I'm able to kind of further break that down. So this is where it is now, and this is where my show is. So this is just kind of the whole big picture in terms of how I'm progressing. That's going to be further broken down into mesocycles. And then that's kind of where it kind of gets more into the planning stage, which we'll be going over in a sec. But basically that's that's probably a month long. So each mesocycle is going to be a month long. There's 12 mesocycles in one macro cycle because there's 12 months in 1 year. So in terms of that, I will have mesocycles, and that will be further broken down into microcycles. And that's kind of like my weekly training, like 1 week of training. And like I said, as I'm going through the training, I'm going to be giving you guys insights into my training, my workouts, basically everything, my nutrition. So I will be taking you through that. So I'm not going to be showing you guys my full program in terms of which exercises I'm periodizing. I will be covering that as I go through and as I progress, and you will be seeing the workouts. So I will, like I said, I will kind of show you from a weekly basis in terms of my microcycles. But in terms of like my mesocycles, how I'm going to break that down. So I'm going to be following a push-pull legs. It's going to be slightly modified. I'll get into more of that in future videos probably in terms of how I modified it. But in terms of the blocks, what I'm going to be doing, so each mesocycle, so each month of training is going to be focused on a certain block. It's basically how I organize my training or what my focus is. So in terms of a hypertrophy block, that's going to be one block, and the next block is going to be a strength block. In terms of a hypertrophy block, what my goal here is to kind of, it's going to be very volume focused. I want to gradually increase volume. I want to keep frequency around the same. I'm going to be training anywhere from 2 to 3 times a week for each muscle group, depending on the muscle group. Something like calves and abs can be trained, forearms can be trained a lot more. So in terms of that, like that might be up to 3 times a week, 4 times a week, depending on how I organize my training. But yeah, for other muscle groups like chest and back and legs, those are going to be 2 times a week. And that's just kind of an optimal frequency. So I will be kind of keeping frequency the same, but I'll be increasing my volume over time, and I'll be increasing my intensity over time. So in terms of my intensity, I'll be starting off at a moderate level of intensity. That's kind of hard to gauge. It's kind of more use of an RPE, which I will go over as I'm going through the training videos, how I adjust that. But I also like to train with a higher intensity. So because of that, my volume does suffer. I won't be able to kind of do as much volume as I want. I kind of want to push the intensity aspect while keeping frequency the same. So I do like to keep intensity high. And then as I mentioned, as the volume creeps up and as the intensity has remained high, the frequency is 2 to 3 times a week, there might be an optional deload. I'll just go based on how I feel. It's just basically like a downtime in your training that you're just kind of not focused on either or, you're just kind of going through the motions and just kind of, like I said, a downtime in your training. So based on how I feel, I might incorporate optional deloads as I go. So that's going to be my first hypertrophy block. That's going to be part of my mesocycles. And then my second block that I'm going to incorporate is a strength block. So normally you have a hypertrophy, a strength, and a power. I'm not going to be doing the power because I'm not so much interested in powerlifting. So I'm just going to be cycling between the hypertrophy and the strength and putting deloads in as I feel is necessary. So in terms of strength, what I'm going to do is I'm going to decrease the volume. The frequency is going to be about the same, so I'm going to try to increase the frequency of my main compound lifts. So that's going to be like my bench press, my squat, my overhead press, and my deadlift, depending on if I choose to do deadlift or not. I might do rack pulls. I haven't decided yet. But yeah, in terms of the strength, like what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to try to increase the frequency of those lifts and try to progress that way. So my volume is going to go down because I'm going to be doing a lot more heavier sets. So the rep range is going to be lower. It's going to be maybe in the 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 reps. And then obviously my intensity, I do like to keep that high. Depending on how I feel, I always like to keep it in the moderate to high range. So that's kind of the overview of my periodized training program, how I'm going from the macro cycle, so the big picture of just where I am now to how I'm going to get to my show, how I'm dividing it each month by focusing on different blocks, and then my weeks of training, which you guys are going to see. And eventually what's going to happen is you guys are going to see it from the microcycles. So it's going to work backwards. So it's going to go from here to here to here, and then finally it's going to be the show. And you guys are going to see the whole process that I'm really looking forward to delivering to you. And like I said, it's going to be a push-pull legs modified, and I will get into, as I do the training videos and as I show that, you guys will have an understanding of which exercises I'm doing and how I'm periodizing the exercises. So now that I covered this, now what I want to do is how I'm going to organize my training during the different phases. Alright, so now that I've covered the training periodization program and you understand what the macro cycle is, now I'm going to kind of move into the mesocycles. And this is kind of what I mentioned before, how I'm going to organize it based on the training phase. So as we previously went over, I have three different phases. It's going to be a bulk, a mini comp, or a mini cut and a recomp. So those are my 3 phases. Now what I got to do is I got to figure out which mesocycles I want to match up with each block. So that's what I'm going to go over now. So in terms of the first, I'm going to be starting off with the hypertrophy block. That's going to run from now until March 8th. March 8th, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move more into a strength block. So these are different mesocycles down here. So my hypertrophy block would be mesocycle 1. And normally a mesocycle is a month long. So that's kind of what my focus is to do the hypertrophy block for a month. And that's going to run until March 8th. And that will be mesocycle 1. And then on March 9th, I'll start a strength block. And that will be mesocycle 2. And that's going to run from March 9th to April 5th. And then as you can see here, I do have a deload with a question mark. So basically what I'm going to do is after that hypertrophy block and that strength block, so after my first 2 mesocycles or my first 2 months, I want to basically assess myself and see whether or not I need to deload before I head into the mini cut, or maybe at the start of the mini cut. My goal with this was to organize it so that I'd have a strength progression right before my mini cut. So right before I entered a calorie deficit, I'd actually be kind of at my strongest in terms of coming off my bulk. So that was my plan in terms of having organizing it that way, with the hypertrophy block first and then the strength block. So like I mentioned, depending on whether or not I take a deload, that's going to change the dates down here. But I will be starting my mini cut off. Like I mentioned, the mini cut's going to be 6 weeks. So what I'm going to do, there's a couple different options. So let's say I do take a deload after my strength block for my bulking phase, then that's actually going to change the dates from the 13th to the May, or from the 13th to the May 23rd. That's what the hypertrophy block's going to run. The reason being is because from April 5th to 13th, that's going to be a week of deload. So normally a deload is anywhere from a week to 2 weeks, depending on how you choose to do it. But what I would do is I would just take a 1 week deload. So let's say I don't take a deload in between these 2 phases, and then I'm going to be starting right after. So that April 5th, when I end that phase there for the strength phase, I'm going to move directly into a hypertrophy phase, and that's going to run from April 6th to May 17th, and that's going to be mesocycle 3. Another option that I do have is, since the mini cut is, like I said, this is just kind of all temporary in terms of once I get there, I'll figure out more of a concrete plan. But like I said, I think it's really important that you do have a plan, and it allows you to kind of know based on how you feel which direction you should take, because you've already figured out beforehand. So that's kind of why I like to put this stuff out here. So in terms of the mini cut, like I mentioned before, I could do the mini cut for that full 6, or I could do that hypertrophy phase for that full 6 weeks of the mini cut, or what I could do is I could do a hypertrophy phase for weeks 1 to 4, and then the last 2 weeks what I could do is I could actually do a deload. So I could actually deload out of the mini cut, and then once I move into the recomp phase, as you can see here, that's going to be mesocycle 4, and then that's going to be kicking it back off of the strength phase. Because that's going to be when I'm actually increasing my calories. So hopefully I'll be able to push a little bit more weight coming off the mini cut. So that's kind of the plan in terms of what I'm thinking. Like I said, this is kind of all up in the air, but I do know for sure that I'm going to be doing a hypertrophy block and a strength block. And then once I get to around April 5th, I'm going to decide whether or not I need to deload, or whether or not I want to move directly into the mini cut and then basically start another hypertrophy block. So that's kind of what I know for sure, and the rest is just kind of tentative, I guess you'd say. So to kind of get further explanation in terms of, I kind of went over the hypertrophy and the strength, but I kind of want to just elaborate a little bit. So in terms of the hypertrophy, like I mentioned, I'm going to be working more in the 8 to 20 reps for most exercises. I'm going to be doing a mix of the compounds and the isolation exercises. I think that's a must for really any block that you're doing. And there will be specialization phases. So what I mean by that is each month I'll focus on maybe improving my upper chest and my shoulders or my side delts. So I'll kind of pick 2 muscle groups that I kind of want to focus on for each hypertrophy block. So to kind of put that in perspective, I do know that I want to work on my upper chest, and I do know that I want to work on my back width. So right now what I'm going to be doing is, since that's a push and a pull, I can actually focus on both those things at once. So I can prioritize both of those because they aren't the same kind of muscle groups. Like I wouldn't be trying to prioritize chest and triceps because it would be kind of hard to do that because I am doing a push workout. So like I said, for an example, this hypertrophy block that I'm doing now is going to be an upper chest focused and a back width focused. So basically on my push days, I'm going to be going in, I'm going to be doing mostly incline movements to kind of bring up that upper chest. And then for back width, I'm going to be doing a lot of pull movements to kind of open up my lats and spread them out, make them a little bit wider, because I am competing in bodybuilding, so that's kind of what my goal was, is to kind of make my waist seem as small as possible, and then if I am able to kind of develop a wider back, I'll give the illusion of a smaller waist. So that's kind of what I meant by the specialization phases, and they're going to change. So like maybe do a month or two, depending on how I feel in terms of doing it, of just focusing on two things, and then I can shift my focus. So maybe I come down to the mini cut, or maybe after the recomp when I'm moving back into a hypertrophy phase, maybe I want to work on just making my shoulders wider, and maybe bringing up my rear delts or something. So there's different specialization phases that you can do. Like I said, once I kind of get everything kind of finalized in terms of the actual exercises and all that I'll be doing, then I'll be moving more into that. And like I said, I will be taking you through my training. At least once a week, I'll be showing you insights into my training, my nutrition, and my posing. So you guys are going to see all of this. So it's just going to all play out eventually, and you'll have a better understanding once I start getting some workouts in. And yeah, I'll be explaining them while I'm doing them as well. But just to further add on hypertrophy, there will be volume accumulation. So what that means is I'll be going based on Dr. Mike Israel's. I'll link the website. I'll show you basically what I mean in terms of that. Like I said, when I go further into detail. But basically what I'll be doing is I'll be starting off at the lower end of volume, and during the hypertrophy phase, my goal is to keep frequency the same and bump volume up. So I'll be going from the lower volume range to the higher volume range before transitioning into maybe a strength block, or maybe even taking a deload. So that's kind of what my goal is for volume accumulation. And in terms of, like I mentioned before, like the intensity is going to stay the same. It's going to be moderate to high, and the frequency is going to be anywhere from 2 to 3 times a week, depending on the muscle group. So yeah, now moving into strength. So in terms of strength, it's going to change up a bit because I'm going to be lowering the rep ranges to 4 to 6 reps. That's going to be mainly on my compound movements. The ones I'm going to be focusing on are going to be bench press, overhead press, squats, and deadlifts. Like I said, depending on how my lower back feels, I might just substitute rack pulls until I feel comfortable doing deadlifts. But I will be doing like RDLs, and I'll be doing other heavy posterior chain exercises to kind of make up for that. But yeah, I definitely will be doing the bench press, and I will be doing the overhead press and the squat. Those are guaranteed for the compound movements, and those are going to be more in this the 4 to 6 range. And then I also have a good mix of isolation exercises in there as well. Anything from the 8 to 20 rep range, and those are just kind of exercises that are added on to almost complement maybe like the strength, or maybe just exercises that I feel are beneficial for bringing up the areas that I want. So that's kind of what the overview of those are. And then in terms of exercises, I think it's really great that you periodize exercises. So I think that people get too caught up in being married to one exercise, and when they're designing a program, they're trying to find that ultimate program with all the exercises that they want. And I'm kind of that way as well when I'm making a program. I'm really picky with what exercises I pick to go in that program. But I think the best way to do it is to kind of periodize or cycle your exercises. So let's say, give an example. Let's say you were doing side delts and you wanted to do dumbbell lateral raises. 1 month, what you could do is you could focus on using dumbbells and doing the lateral raises, and the next month what you could do is you could focus on using the cables and doing the lateral raises. So all you're really doing is just periodizing the different variations of exercises instead of just jumping around all the time. I think that would be a good approach. Not saying that jumping around all the time isn't good. I think it definitely gives variety in your training, and it can be enjoyed. It can be really enjoyable because you're changing your training on a daily basis, so it can make things a little more interesting. But what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to periodize my exercises. So once I figure out, to put that in perspective, what I mean is the hypertrophy phase will be 1 month. Those will be exercises that will be in there for 1 month. And then when I move into a different hypertrophy phase, I'll kind of swap out some of the exercises here and include some new ones while kind of keeping the foundations. So that's kind of what I'm thinking in terms of how I'm going to organize the mesocycles with the phases. So that's kind of my general plan. Like I said, it's not 100% finalized. I do know, like I said, I'm going to be doing the hypertrophy and the strength, and then once I get to April, I'm going to reassess and see whether or not I need a deload, but that's just basically the overview. Alright, so that's going to conclude today's video. It did go a little bit longer than I wanted, but it was my detailed plan. It's very important that I kind of have everything right in terms of just kind of going into it. But like I mentioned, things are tentative. There's a lot of numbers that are up in the air, but like going back to what I said previously, I think it's really important that you plan, so then you don't lose sight of what you want to do, and then you have a plan in place, and it can kind of give you some direction in terms of, okay, well, I'm here, what was I planning on doing, or what was my next steps? And I think that as I'm going through, you guys will see that I'm able to adjust it, and of of course, there's going to be adjustments. It's not going to be absolutely perfect, and that's the point. If it was perfect, then you would just know exactly what to do, and you wouldn't need to plan it. So I think by doing that, I think that it kind of gives you some direction, and I'm looking forward to making the adjustments and just kind of seeing how the process goes. And I'm really looking forward to bringing you guys along for the ride. So like I said, there will be videos that I'll be detailing my nutrition, maybe going through full days of eating, going through vlogging. I'll also be doing posing and training, so there'll be lots of different content from this series. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Like I said, I do have a lot of great, exciting content planned in the works that I'm super excited to share with you, and I really want you guys to be along for the ride. So definitely subscribe to the channel. Also turn on the bell notifications. I want to make sure you get notified every time I drop a new video. I'll be going over that. Right now my video frequency, it was 2 times a week, but now it's going to be 3 times a week. So what I'm going to be doing is my new video upload schedule is going to be Sunday and Wednesday. Before they were my 2 uploads. So from Sunday you can expect something from the Clean Bulk series, which is just general education videos that I kind of feel like putting out. There's a lot of different value in that, so definitely don't miss that from a value perspective. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to be starting, it was my Short on Time series, but it actually came to an end at the end of February, so I'll be starting up a Versus series. So basically what that's going to be is going to be comparing similar exercises. So I'll be comparing, the first one I'm going to be doing actually is going to be the bench press versus the dumbbell press, just to kind of give you guys an idea of what I'll be comparing. And I'm going to be going over basically which one's better from a muscle building perspective, and how you would kind of, why it's better, and how you would kind of implement either one into your programs. So that's going to kind of be the Versus series, is comparing different exercises to give you guys the verdict on which one I feel and which one the studies. I'm going to be going through different, doing a little bit of research on it and seeing what the studies say in terms of the exercises themselves. So it's not just going to be my opinion, it's going to be just kind of a collective resource of what people are saying versus how I feel about the exercise. So that's going to be kind of more of the Versus series. And then, like I said, this series is going to be Friday, so this is going to be the Road to Pro series. That's going to be every single Friday. And this is just kind of the overview details. I guess you can call this episode 1 if you want. But yeah, so you can look over you can look over the next episode next Friday, and that will be a training video. I'm really excited to share that with you. Yeah, so this is going to kind of how I progress in terms of doing it. I'm really excited to share this prep process with you guys. And definitely give the video a like if you did like it and you got some value out of it. And yeah, I'll see everybody here next time. Peace out.